morning, everybody. Let's start here on our study. Before him, wherever he went. This again is a longer chapter, so we'll take it into break it into sections and discuss it as we move through the text. So let us read verses 1 through 7. Chapter 5. You got it? You good? Okay. I'm going to stand up then, since you're way back there. No, I need steps. I'll watch this. I got to walk. I will stay in the area of the camera, but I will be able to. I'm going to move. I'm going to move the microphone quietly, peacefully like this, so I don't drive people off the wall at home.
Want me to read 1 to 7 for you?
Go ahead, read 1:7. Thank you, Tom.
Sometime later, Jesus went up to Jerusalem for one of the Jewish festivals. Now there is in Jerusalem near the sheep gate, a pool which in Aramaic is called the Theater, which is surrounded by 5 covered colonnades. Here a great number of disabled people used to lie, the blind, the lame, and the paralyzed. One was there, an invalid for 38 years. When Jesus saw him lying there and learned that he had been in this condition for a long time, he asked him, "Do you want to go and get well?" "Sir," the invalid replied, "I have no one to help me into the pool. The water is stirred. While I'm trying to get in, someone else comes down ahead of me." More.
Okay. Jesus said to him, "Get up, take up your bed, and walk." And at once the man was healed, and he took up his bed, and he walked. Now that day was the Sabbath. So the Jews said to the man who had been healed, "It is a Sabbath, and it is not lawful for you to take up your bed." But he answered them, "The man who healed me, that man said to me, 'Take up your bed and walk.'" They asked him, "Who is the man who said to you, 'Take up your bed and walk'?" Now the man who had been healed did not know who it was, for Jesus had withdrawn, as there was a crowd in the place. Afterward, Jesus found him in the temple and said to him, "See, you are well. Sin no more, that nothing worse may happen to you." The man went away and told the Jews that it was Jesus who had healed him. And this was why the Jews were persecuting Jesus, because he was doing these things on the Sabbath. But Jesus answered them, "My Father is working until now, and I am working." Thoughts or questions about anything we just read in the first opening verses of this chapter? There's lots of meat here, folks. Lots of things to talk about.
I know that was probably all he had in life was his blanket, his bed, his whatever.
Yeah.
So he just rolled it up. That's work?
That was work.
That's not work.
Picking up your bed. To the Pharisees, the leaders of the temple, you carrying anything, moving anything, was work.
That's a real far stretch.
But here they are.
A lot of things to what would be. They had added a lot of things.
Yeah, they added. Exactly. They added it.
Them walking from the house of worship to their home. That's work.
That
Takes
is-
a lot of exercise to get from there to there. Takes an awful to take your bed. I mean,
Well, here's the thing. Like she said, these are man-made rules. Okay, these are more man-made rules. The rules were applied and made by God. Then man took them and said, "Well, how far could we stretch? How far could we cast the net? How far do we want to make things go?"
as
Okay.
far as you want to get the lie across.
Whatever you want to do to personify what you want to carry across, to make your point. Okay? All right, so great question there.
Can I add something to
Yeah, Tom, please.
the thing about you can't go very far on Sabbath?
Yeah.
Well, what they would do, from what I've been told, is that they would take their shoes and have someone put them out there to the limit. Because where they could walk to wherever they owned something. So they would walk to the shoes,
Oh.
have someone pick them up, move them out again. So they would move to that point.
So they force somebody else to
But
work for
somebody
them.
else was working
Well,
then.
they didn't count.
Oh.
The servant didn't count because the servant was underneath the protocol of having to do these things.
Right.
So the servant did these things and the master just followed what the servant was doing.
There's no rule under the sun that man can't figure a way out.
Yeah, and Jesus there, he says, you gotta let your ox drown,
Yeah,
fall into the well. Just gotta let it drown.
yeah, yeah. It's interesting. Yeah, it's a good point. It's funny how they're concerned about, oh, you, my friend, are carrying a mat in the temple. That's a sin. You're working. Oh, but wait a minute. You were laying on your mat a minute ago. What happened? They're not even focused on the fact that you are healed. And this guy here wasn't somebody who just appeared in the temple. For 38 years, he had been unable to walk. For 38 years, his family, almost daily, weekly for sure, if not daily, would wake up, carry him to the pool of Bethsaida, in the area of the pool of Bethsaida by the Sheep's Gate, and place him by the pool. So they didn't call his family saying, your family worked today by bringing you out to the pool.
Yeah.
Your family's going to work tonight by coming to get you. They didn't think about that. Now, the number 38, I don't want you to get caught up in number 38. What does number 38 mean? The number 38 doesn't pertain to anything particular. I don't want to take it and twist and turn it, meaning it has some specific meaning, figuratively or literally. All it means is he was unable to walk for a very long time. And it was believed that if you were unable to walk, or you were sick, or you had leprosy, you had some type of disease, that when you were sitting by one of these pools, and the angel stirred the water, if you were one of the first ones in a pool, you'd be healed. It was believed that this would happen. It didn't always happen, but it was believed that if you were one of the first ones in the pool when the water was stirred, that you would be healed.
And it's also the idea of convenience. Think about it. The one big law that God has always said is love your neighbor. So you got a guy here who's lying on a mat, paralyzed, you gotta let him. Just lie there, no one's gonna help him. You got a guy walking down the road and he gets mugged, and you're just gonna walk on the other side of the road. You got a widow sitting there in the temple, and she's only got a little bit of a light. You're not gonna give her something to eat. Think about it. I mean, you're putting in all these rules, and God, you're forgetting the one big rule: love your neighbor.
When it says he was invalid, I would take that to mean that he was totally, he couldn't move. He couldn't move any of his limbs. He was literally laying there on a mat.
He didn't have a walker.
And that, yeah, he had no walkers at that point. And that was his concern. How can I get in the water? When the water's stirred up, how can I get in the water and be healed when there's nobody here to put me in? So he asked Jesus, are you going to put me in the water? Jesus says, oh, I got something better than that. I got something better than that.
Wasn't Jesus saying you don't need the water, you need it?
Yeah, you don't need the water. Listen to me, yeah. Watch this. No water needed. No assembly required. Yeah. Okay? All right, so right from this point, remember, this is right at the beginning, right near the beginning of Jesus' ministry. So right from the get-go, he's already rubbing, or as Tom likes to say, he's already poking the bear, trying to get them upset, the Pharisees and the Sadducees and the scribes, by going against some of the things that they were against, okay? Any other thoughts or questions there yes, Bill?
The question that Jesus asked, do you want to be healed? So did the man believe at that moment that Jesus could heal him, or?
No, because look at the response. Do you want to be healed? The sick man answered him, Sir, I have nobody to put me in a pool when the water stirred up. And while I'm going in, another one steps down before me. So he didn't think Jesus was going to heal him. He was thinking, how am I going to get healed if nobody's here to put me in the water?
Right.
He didn't know who Jesus was. Jesus' reputation at this point was just building, Bill. His reputation was just building. He was just getting known. He was just starting his ministry. Tom, was you going to ask a question? Kathy, I'm sorry. I saw a hand over here.
Verse 14, see you are well, sin no more, that nothing worse may happen to you.
Yes.
Said, like almost that there's gonna be something bad
See that, right. That's what it says in my study notes. Warning against persisting in unbelief, lest consequences worse than a physical handicap follow. So yes, if you don't, by faith, believe, there's a chance that something worse can happen. If you have faith, you could be made well. But without faith, you will persistently get worse and worse. Okay?
Henry Eggo once preached a sermon going to your question or your comment there. It was called Drop That Stone. And when they brought the woman that they caught in adultery. And that's the one thing we have to say, about sin. Before we start casting rocks at our neighbor, look at ourselves.
Yep.
Look at ourselves and what we are. We're first-class thinkers. Without God's grace, we're going to be first-class thinkers forever.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Drop that stone. So when he asks you, you want to be well?
Yes.
Why not?
Yeah, we drop that stone. Yeah, absolutely. There's a whole nother topic right there I can go off on. All right, any other questions or comments there on that first 17 verses? Let's go to my study notes. To begin with, we have this period of time that is not designated or shared with us because this is one of the elements that I like to think of as being not important because we as human beings like to use reason and logic that would allow ourselves to get lost in time, in the time issue rather than rejoicing in what we see happening. So it opens up after there was this feast. It doesn't say how long after there was this feast, just after a period of time there was this feast. Was there days? Was there weeks? How long after? It doesn't say. Just at some point after these prior events, there was this feast. Okay? The feast was most likely the Feast of Booths. Again, the exact feast is not mentioned by names, but this was assumed by the scholars because of the timing. By looking at the timing and the calendar, they thought it was the Feast of Booths. The Feast of Booths was a commemoration of the 40 years of wandering in the desert, okay, for the Israelites when Moses called them out of Egypt. The sheep gate was an opening in the wall that was used to help bring sheep into the temple. There was a pool there that was used that the sheep would be taken to be washed before taken to the sanctuary. So I want you to picture, if you picture this fellowship hall, for example, as the temple, they had different gates. The sheep gate would be the gate that was facing the pastures that they would bring sheep through that allowed them to wash them in the pools before they were brought to the sanctuary, to the tabernacle, to the temple, to be sold to people to be used for offering. Okay? They also had a fish gate. The fish gate would have been towards the sea, and that would be the gate that they used to bring the fish in, to bring them into market. That would either bring the fish through the sheep gate or another gate or another gate. They had different gates, and the gates a lot of times were used for specific things. They were used for normal traffic, but they were meant for specific things as well. Okay? Oh, you were just coughing. All right. Many of the local invalids, Bill.
Yeah. So the pool washes the sheep, and as far as I know, sheep have
Wool.
big and woolly and a bunch of bugs and germs, and so that pool wasn't very clean. But he came there
To be clean.
to be healed
To be clean. To be cleansed.
in dirty water.
Different times, brother. Gee, people flock to the Jordan River to be baptized and
Yeah.
be cleansed.
Water is water. Okay.
They didn't have the filtration system.
Right.
Even the water that they had that they used for drinking and bathing normally came on aqueducts. It wasn't purified. It wasn't clean. It just flowed from the rivers or flowed on the mountains. And there was no purification system built. Yeah, this was not the kind of water, if you were thirsty, you go lapping out of. Yeah.
All you Buckeyes, the Chagrin River caught on fire, people still swam in it and drank it.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was the Chagrin, it was the Cuyahoga,
not been to Lake Erie many, many times.
Lake Erie,
There's
yeah.
barrels and cans floating all in it.
Yeah.
What?
Many of the local invalids gathered here because it was thought that the pool had special healing powers when the water was stirred. Families would take their invalid or the senior citizens in their households and would drop them off there by the pools for healing. You're good, Debbie. I
Oh,
got you.
sorry,
I got you.
Pastor,
No, you're
thank
good.
you.
You're good.
It's not my fault,
Yes,
is it?
Sharon, do you have a question?
Yeah.
So that's what people would do. If you were elderly and you had a problem walking or an illness or sickness, they would take you in the morning and drop you off by this pool, and in the evening, at the end of the day, when they were done working the fields or working in the cobbler shop or whatever they did, they would come gather you up and bring you back. Okay? So it was kind of like the first invention of assisted living. All right? So there was a lot of people that were gathered there. Jesus saw a man lying there beside the pool that is described to us as an invalid. What his situation is unclear. We don't know how he became an invalid. What occurred? Was he an invalid his whole life? Did something occur? Was it an accident, a farming accident? Was it an illness? What's that? Was he born that way? We don't know. Was he 38 years old? He spent his whole life this way? Was he a farmer who kicked out a bull? It could be anything. He could have become an invalid at any point in his life. Nothing tells us. All we know is for 38 years he was in that condition. For 38 years.
You know, that's the other thing too, we gotta realize how precious life was, and how precious life was considered. Despite the fact that he was completely useless, somebody was still taking care of him. You think about the people, how we treat life today.
Huh. Oh, you open up a can of worms.
Like I said, they took the time to talk to the man, you know.
Yeah, you took time to talk about it. And that's something
That's what a treasure really is.
Yeah.
Know that.
And that's something people don't do in today's world, Tim, is they don't take the time to go to those shit. They're too short. And on Tom's point, something we see happening today is we see a lot more of these senior citizen centers going up, assisted living centers, because the younger generation coming up, instead of taking care of their parents and letting their parents move in with them, are saying it's easier to tuck them away somewhere, and we'll go see them on Christmas and Easter and bring them roses or something. Okay? And
We are living longer.
what's that?
We are living longer.
And that's the thing, right now, if you go back, I was looking at this when I started looking at this when I was at seminary, because somebody made a point. Back in the 60s and 70s, the average age of males was 68 to 72 years old, and the females was 72 to 78. In the 2010 to 2015 era, we've seen a bump. The average age of males is now 78 to 80, and women is over 80. So what's happening now is people are retiring, they're living longer, so people are putting them, instead of allowing them to live in their homes and take care of them, they're like, no, you're a bother. The other thing we're seeing, this is, on a side note, we talk about how we are against abortion, how it sickens us. Something else that we need to think about is euthanasia. Unfortunately, what has happened in years is people have looked at senior citizens and said, there's no value of life here. There's no value of life left. So let's just slowly let them dwindle away until there's nothing left. Years ago, when I was a teenager in my early 20s, there was a doctor in the Detroit area called Dr. Kevorkian. He got, and I'm sure people knew about him all across the country, across the nation. He got in a lot of trouble because he was called the suicide doctor. If you were ill or sick, or you had an aging parent that you didn't want to take care of anymore, you would give him a couple of dollars. He walked in with these 4 vials of medications that he would press a button and one vial would go, the second, the third, then the fourth, and then within 20 minutes your loved one was deceased. He did that a couple times until he got put in prison because who made him God? You're playing the hand of God by doing that. You are literally playing the hand of God by saying you have no value in life anymore.
Which, Bill, is the opposite of DNR.
Yes.
It's the opposite of DNR. Do not resuscitate. This is a nurse in critical care for over 25 years, and a 96-year-old woman would go flatline, and who had families that insisted on DNR. That means resuscitating. They're dead, but it's one thing to be dead, and there's another thing to give somebody a pill and say, here, you go ahead and die.
If their body naturally shuts down
Yeah.
and goes according to God's plan, that's one thing. When you forcefully give them a pill or a medication that advances the process, the dying process.
Passion,
What's that?
passion on it. I think, to me, because it's in their stuff. You know,
In a way, I see you're saying it's compassionate.
body
it's
is
something,
alive,
but
you know.
you don't know. God could still use these people. I mean that parent, that grandparent, the grandchild can still learn from the grandparent to tell them a story. Can still love on them. I mean, you're robbing from somebody. You're robbing life from that person.
In Canada today, they encourage suicide. The nation will assist you in suicide. If you are ill, they offer you that. They will do it. And if you go for treatment, that's one of the options they tell you about.
Really?
Yeah,
They're gonna
it's
put you on
the
the
same
organ
way.
donor list too.
Do what?
They're gonna put you on the organ donor list too.
Yeah.
Automatic.
Well, get out of Dodge.
Which
Iceland, in the country of Iceland, there are no Down syndrome babies.
there's no what?
There are no Down syndrome babies born in Iceland.
In Iceland?
Yeah,
That's why I don't visit there.
yeah,
I refuse to go there.
yeah. For child, you can determine a child's, whether there's a Down syndrome in the womb. And
Oh.
So, and therefore, and so Iceland, you are permitted to
Take the baby before it's born. That's some of the most beautiful people I've ever met are kids with Down syndrome. They are the most peaceful, loving, kind, generous. They have a huge heart, and they just always smile and they always love. Yeah.
Well, everybody seems to think that they have Down syndrome, you have to be mentally retarded. But Concordia, Chicago, just had a Down syndrome graduate at Concordia, Chicago.
Really?
Yeah.
Some people with Down syndrome are very, very intelligent. And the thing is, what bothers me most about that is, who gives us the right to determine the value of life? Nobody. Nobody on earth has a right to make the judgment of the value of life. Bill, I'm off topic. No.
To your point, those are some of the most pleasant people to take my order at a fast food restaurant.
Yeah.
People with Down syndrome. I mean, they are taught to a task, and you walk in and it's like, how can I help you?
And they're just happy.
And I'm going, oh, I love this person.
They're happy, they're go-lucky, they're just peaceful. Yeah, they're loving people. And I'm off topic. I'm going to get off topic.
Okay.
Okay. The man who was still focused on the pool thought that perhaps Jesus was going to help him get a pool. From there, he received his healing. He thought by Jesus asking, do you want to be healed, that Jesus was going to actually take him, place him in the pool. But Jesus said, no, I'm going to do something bigger than place you in a pool. I'm going to give you a healing that lasts. I'm going to do something for you that you're going to want to tell people about. Okay? So he says, you want to be healed? How am I going to get healed? Nobody can pick me up, put me in the pool, but when the water's stirred, Jesus says, fine, get up, pick up your mat and walk. Think about those words for a second. An invalid who has not walked in 38 years is laying on his mat, and a guy he's never seen says, get up, pick up your mat, and walk. What do you think was the first thing that went through the guy? He's laying on the ground's head.
I was just gonna, he didn't hesitate.
He didn't hesitate. He jumped. It tells us he jumped right up. And once the man was healed, he took up his bed and he walked. He didn't hesitate.
Not only did he have some kind of condition where he couldn't walk, if he's been laying there for 38 years, he has no muscle.
He had no muscle mass. You're absolutely right, Tom. He had no muscle mass. All the muscle atrophy, his muscles would have been absolutely useless. Yeah. He would have been, and his body would have been probably very, very stiff. Unable to walk, unable to do anything. Sure. Good point. He got up and he walked. Take up your mat or your pad and go home. Immediately the man was healed. He stood up, he rolled in his mat, and went on his way. After 38 years of being an invalid, this man was immediately healed. It does not say how old he was, if it was like that from birth, or if something happened to him along the way that caused his illness. Either way, his family most likely brought him there every day, hoping that he'd be healed. Now he was. Imagine how the family would have felt when every day, it was just like a Lutheran church. This was his spot. Every day, they laid him in this spot by the fountain. This is where, every day, this was his spot. They laid him there every morning, every night they came back, they picked him up. This was his spot. Remember, they didn't have cell phones. He couldn't get up and say, hey, just so you know, some guy healed me, I'm on my way home. And then when they got off work, when they came back from the fields, when they came back from wherever they were doing, they came back to that spot to get the invalid off the ground. Him and his mat were gone. And they did not know what to do. And it doesn't say what time of the day this happened. It may have been in the afternoon. And as they're looking for this invalid, they see a guy over there and a crowd around him all excited because he is not walking, and all of a sudden they see their brother or uncle or dad walking through the crowd. Your loved one is now up and walking like nothing ever happened. I want you guys to think about that for a minute. The loved one, there's a good chance if he's 38 years old, if he was a father, there's a good chance that his youngest child may have been 2, 3 years old, may not ever remember him ever walking. And now he's walking. His son could be 35 years old and seeing his dad walk for the first time. Do you guys are going to shake your head? Yeah. Do you guys get this?
Yeah, powerful.
That's powerful.
Good. I mean, there's blind out there, just standing, waiting to be healed.
People waiting to be healed. And here this guy is that they thought would be laying exactly where they left him. He's up walking around.
Good.
Not just that, he's talking about this guy that nobody knows, saying, this guy that I don't know, he showed up and said, get up, pick up your mat, and walk. He testifies to it. He's saying, telling everybody, he told me to pick up my mat and walk, and I did. To me, that's just mind-blowing. Even in the midst of this miracle, we have the group that was looking and stealing away the beauty of all that happened. The Jews and the leaders of the temple called the man out for taking up his mat and carrying it with him, since it was a Sabbath. Because necessary works are forbidden.
I think also this is why John calls them signs and not miracles. In the book of John, you find out he doesn't call them miracles. He uses the word
Never refers
signs.
to miracles.
They're signs. Oh, wait a second. This guy told this guy to get up, and this guy gets up. What's the sign? Oh, this must be the Messiah that has been promised all these years.
Yeah.
There's a sign there. And if you look to the book of John, you'll see all these signs. It begins with that wine sign in chapter 2. This is the first sign. That Jesus is the Christ, the Son of God. So John calls them, in John's gospel, they're not miracles.
no signs, yep.
Signs for us, and like you said, you go out there and you see that stop sign, you know, I better stop. Now John does this with this guy, and here's another sign. What's the sign? Oh, yeah.
With this happening, there were lots of ripples in the pool
Yeah.
to him, his family, and the people who see him. Lots of ripples.
Lots of ripples.
A depth to it.
Yeah, so then,
I think when, Jesus said, do you want to be healed? That it included that depth.
so you're saying the ripples weren't only in the pool, now the ripples are outside the pool,
Well, in the family.
in the family.
In the people, yes.
Not just that, I think
It
they're-
affected other people being affected.
I think everybody,
Like a ripples.
like a ripple in the pool, I'm gonna say everybody who saw that, and everybody who heard the man's testimony also felt a ripple. I think it's a wide-ranging ripple. Absolutely. Oh, I see what you said there, thank you. So the man answered the people saying that this man healed me and told me to take up my mat and go home, so I did as I was told. They asked him, who did it? He goes, I don't know. The man who healed me, I don't know who he was. He told me to take up my mat and walk. He said, who is the man that said that to you? He said, I don't know. A little while later, he runs into him. Jesus found him and said, see, you are well, sin no more. So then the man ran and told the Jews it was Jesus. This man that they called Jesus, he's the one who healed me. And immediately they went, here we go. Let the persecution begin. From that point on, well, from beyond, before this, they've already begun planning about how to trap Jesus in the things he said and the things he did.
So were they the priests?
The priests, the leaders, the Pharisees, the scribes, the leaders of the church, all these people here, because, again, Sharon, they were teaching the people, this is what you need to do, according to what we see, this is what you need to do. And Jesus came and said, no, that's not exactly right. And they were picturing a Messiah that fit into their parameters. Jesus didn't fit in their parameters, right? They expected a Messiah, a king, to be born in a palace, to be wearing purple, to have all this beautiful pomp and circumstance around him. Jesus wore sandals and beat up clothes. He had long stringy hair. He lived in people's houses. He didn't have a house of his own. He wasn't born in a palace. He was born in a manger, in a stable. He wasn't a king. He didn't fit the earthly kingly cookie cutter. He didn't fit into what they expected. So they were against what he was doing. Okay?
So they were so invested in their man-made rules that they had added on to what God had originally told them to do.
Yes.
That they couldn't see beyond that, and Christ didn't follow those man-made rules.
Right. And even Jesus tells the people, I forget where it is, do not do as the Pharisees and the scribes. Do as they say, not as they do. Because they tell you to live this way, but they go and live this way because they don't think the rules apply to them. Okay? So that says a lot about the lifestyle that they were living, the things that they were doing.
They were the hypocrites.
They were the hypocrites. Okay?
It's like if you think of politics, the people in power make the rules to keep themselves in power.
Yeah. Yeah.
You think about your most favorite hymn and that hymn book, Amazing Grace. Rock of Ages. Think about it. They all talk about God's grace. They don't talk about do this rule, that rule, this thing, that thing, that thing. It's all about grace.
Grace, one grace.
And this
to tie into what you were saying, is Jesus was threatening their power. He was usurping their power because they were saying one thing and this other person from outside saying, no, this isn't, it's not what you should be doing. Tim,
And you fear what you do not understand.
you fear what you do not understand, and they could not
And
understand.
here's a being that can do these things, and if a person now can do that,
If Jesus came back right now and was doing the things he was doing, most of us would go, dude, you're out of your mind. Yeah, oh, absolutely, absolutely.
I can see both sides.
I see both sides of that, yeah, but if somebody came back and was doing some of these mind-bending things, confuse you. But if somebody was coming back and raising people from the dead and giving people the ability to walk again and giving people back to sight and healing the sick,
Right, that was all based up, I'm just saying, it's just, it's the.
I heard tell your husband. That's all I heard. I heard tell your husband.
also, to add to that, Tim, why would God, who created all
I didn't
this,
hear what you said.
care enough to care about you and me? Why would he take the time to heal you and me? Why would he care enough to send his son for you and me?
Thank you, guys.
So we would be sin-free. We could live a life.
That's what I felt with.
Yeah, we all, Tim, you're not the only one.
Yeah,
You're not the only one who struggles with that. I think we all struggle with the fact that,
sure do.
why? Why?
I just see my God as a municipal God, like in the Old Testament,
He's invincible, he's powerful, he's almighty.
He's God, he does no wrong.
He does no wrong, and he sent his son for you.
Yeah.
And for Ron, and for Missy, for Carol, for Tom 1 and Tom 2, and all of us, yeah. Yeah, for all of us. Because he made you, and each one of us, in his image. For the purpose of spending eternity with you and all of us.
And that's why we embrace Christianity. We can throw away that idea that you have to go out and kill 6 people, then you get to go to heaven.
Yeah. Kill 6 people and you get a virgin waiting for you in heaven. Good luck. Yeah. Yeah. All right. The man answered the people, saying that this man healed me and told me to take my mat and go home. I did as I was told. He could not point to who it was. Jesus finds the man a little later and told him to sin no more. What Jesus was telling the man was not to let unbelief overtake him and cause him to sin even more. What his unbelief would cause would not even measure up against him being crippled. So what unbelief would cause would not even measure up against what he's already been through. This was the beginning of the end for Jesus because the man told the leaders that it was Jesus that healed him, and now they began to look for a way to trap Jesus in his teaching and in his words for the purpose of stopping Jesus from doing what he was doing so they could continue their leadership. And like Noreen said, it was a power thing. It's like what you said too, it's a power thing. They created the rules themselves, and Jesus was coming in and shattering these rules. So they worked hard. They worked hard to get where they were, and the only way to get them out of there was for them to leave. You couldn't vote them out. Once they got put into power, there was a lifetime cycle that they lived. So when Jesus came in and he usurped their power, they had no purpose anymore. Okay? Jesus' reply to what was happening is something that should speak to all of us, and something that I hinted at a couple weeks ago in one of my messages. God never stops working, and neither should we. Jesus was doing the Father's will and working the same way that the Father does. So in the same way, we should continue to work and share in the gospel and bring the good news to the people. Okay? Thoughts or questions on that? There's a lot of good topics in here. I mean, we talked a lot of stuff about abortion and about euthanasia and the end of life and how today's world views are much different than they were 20, 30, 40 years ago. They've changed considerably. The axis has changed considerably. The world spins differently now because of the way people look at things and think of things. The bottom line is, we as Christians need to allow the axis to be tilted back to where it should be as we maintain our integrity, the way we think and approach things, and not allow the world to augment our thinking and change our way of thinking, the way that we run our lives. We need to maintain our integrity. We don't need to let the Pharisees and the Sadducees and the scribes of today's world push us around and try to tell us what we should be doing, rather than us just doing what we need to be doing. Right? Any other thoughts or questions? We got 5 minutes left. There's not enough time to tackle the next block of text. We'll just call it good 5 minutes ago, unless there's any other topics or discussions.
I think the important thing to learn from all this is that you never know what God has in mind.
No, you don't. And that goes right back to what Isaiah says. Your ways are what God says to Isaiah. Your ways are not my ways. Your thoughts are not my thoughts. My ways and thoughts are higher than your ways and thoughts. So you can try to think that you know the ways and the thoughts, but God's ways are beyond. And sometimes, like I said this before, if I were to look back at my life 30 years ago, and you told me in 2025 you're going to be the pastor of a church in Knoxville, Tennessee, I would have said, I don't know who hit you, but you got to find them because you are desperately in need of medical help.
Barbara Modansky was the first woman I shared a crib with. And the doctor, Barbara had cerebral palsy, and I was just a few months younger than her. I was doing all these things that kids do that are supposed to do, rolling over, pulling myself out of the crib. And Barbara was just laying there. And the doctor said, don't worry, she's only going to live to be 4. The last time I saw her, she was 75. The time was over.
Wow.
That's awesome.
You never know what God's going to have in store.
Never know.
You never know. You never know.
God has in mind. So.
You never know. With that being said, I thank you all for being here. I pray for God's grace and mercy to wash over you as you live with the remainder of your week. I look forward to seeing you midweek at our Bible study or Wednesday Warriors Bible study. If not, we'll see you next Sunday. Whenever I can see you, I look forward to it. Apples. Before I send you on your way, we got apples over there. Noreen said we got a bunch of apples from Second Harvest. They can't give them away to the people from Second that we normally give on Thursdays.
We can give them to our clients, but since they're free, parishioners can
Okay.
have them too.
Since the apples are free to us, they are free to give them away to us for free. So Noreen says, if you want some apples, please take some apples. They're Cosmic Crisp. They're good and they're sweet. They're not mushy, and they got a good sweet taste to them. Cosmic Crisp are probably one of my top 3 apples, top 5 apples. All right, brothers and sisters in Christ, go in peace and serve the Lord.
We shall.
Amen. Thank you all for being here and taking part in today with me. You guys are awesome.